Okay, so for the Google Gem project, I decided to, as a art teacher, primarily hoping to teach ceramics, I decided to interview a material that I use often, porcelain, which is a type of clay. And often porcelain is a hard, a challenging material to use, and beginning students tend to struggle with that. So I thought it'd be a really great tool um, to to use for this assignment. Um, so yeah, so when creating my gem, I decided to call it Picky Porcelain, and uh, I customized the persona, describing it as delicate, poetic, yet demanding. And it's a lump of raw porcelain. So I guess the thinking behind that is that students can talk directly to the material and ask it questions. So some key instruction points that I found. Let's see. Oh yeah, so I also told the gem to use specific ceramic terms like kaolin, vitrification, grog, shrinkage. Um, and the conceptual focus was that the gem must discuss the idea that clay has memory, which is a metaphor for how bad handling of the material can cause flaws later on. So those were the instructions that I gave the gym. And so this is the beginning of so I created the gem and then began asking it a series of questions. And the first question I asked was, what is it like to be shaped by hands, and how do you respond differently to an experienced artist versus a beginner? And Picky Porcelain begins by explaining plasticity, which is a really important term in ceramics, and does a really great job of explaining that stage, and then goes on to talk about so it discusses like a beginner's approach versus a master's approach. And both were pretty accurate. It was pretty poetic, but that was part of the description that I instructed it. So, um, yeah. So I don't know if that would be helpful for a student to have it so poetic. Um, and then another question was, I heard you have a high degree of plasticity. What exactly does that mean for your body, and how does it feel when you are pushed to your limits? And so Picky Porcelain answers that, um, and talks about the molecular strain, and Clay's memory. Another question, why are you so much more difficult to join or attach separate pieces than other types of clay? Um, and it goes on to talk about how pure porcelain is because it is just particles of kaolin, and there's no grog. So I think that's a really important thing as for a beginner student to understand the like molecular science of clay. Talks about shrinkage, and then it talks about I asked another question about the memory of clay. But then I started thinking more. I thought my questions were maybe a little, they were coming from me, and not a beginner. Um, so I was trying to think like, well, what would like a ninth grade student ask? And so one of the questions I came up with was, what is the key difference between bisque firing and final glaze firing from your perspective? And it goes on to explain that, what bisque firing is, and then vitrification. Um, Oh, this was also another like student question. Why do my pots always look smaller after they come out of the kiln? Where did all that clay go? So I tried to simplify the questions a little bit, to emulate like what a beginner might, how a beginner might pose a question. And again, the gem goes on to answer a very technical, yet poetic response. So overall, I thought it was really good. And so, um, how I think I could use this with students, I think I could do it in two ways, both like whole class and have them just kind of create their own. I think, just doing a projector and demonstrating like how to build a gym, and then maybe having the class participate in the building out of the gym, I think could be really cool. So it would be like a collaboration, and that way students can participate in the creation of it. And this ensures that all students are exposed to expert knowledge and technical vocabulary. And then on the other hand, if they created their own gem, they would be they could like pick different materials. So, I mean, they could even like interview the kiln, which actually I think would be a really cool gem as well, or interview glaze. Um, and so kind of moving on, I think like the benefits of this, of generative AI, is that it promotes AI literacy and critical evaluation. So students learn that AI's expertise is dependent on the instructions it was given. I think that it also enhances analytical thinking, because the gen's output is predictable. So, like I said that it must use certain terms. So the student's focus will shift from what AI is saying to how AI justifies its answer. And they have to analyze the quality of that explanation, not just the answer. It also forces precise prompt engineering, which is the new research tool, basically. So a beginner's question, why is clay hard, gets a generic answer. Um, the challenge becomes, how can I phrase a question to force picky porcelain to talk about vitrification and thermal shock? So this will train the students in more like of a structured, outcome-driven questioning, which is, I think, a crucial skill in the age of generative AI. And then the role of the teacher, I think the teacher's role evolves from like the primary source of information, the giver of information, to the architect of learning. So teacher as architect teaches design, the initial constraints, GEMS instructions, um, to ensure that the AI's output aligns with specific learning objectives. And then another role is like the teacher as a mentor. So the teacher handles interpretation, nuance, and the emotional side of art. And AI can explain like the physics of grog. But the teacher must talk about the artistic choice and implications of using a grogged clay body. This way it preserves the like human connection and artistic dialogue, which we don't want to lose in art classrooms. And then, so the ethics of this, like the teacher guides a discussion on AI bias, plagiarism, and over-reliance, by having students critique AI's output. Um, the teacher the teacher is the final authority, with that verified knowledge and critical mind. So not just the machine. Um, yeah, so all that to say, like in conclusion, I think that AI doesn't replace the teacher. I think um it automates the delivery of like the basic technical information. So this allows the teacher to have time for like higher order thinking, creative problem solving, and mentorship with the students. So overall, I think this assignment was really cool and really interesting, and I would 100% use this in some capacity in a classroom.